Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Nifty Ninty. We have got a great show for you today. It seems that the E3 hangover has finally subsided and we can get back to business as usual. There was so much news that came out of E3 and a whole bunch of releases that you never know if things are going to slow down or not, but no, not in the world of Nintendo. Things are still rolling. This week, I also got a review for you guys for the first time, so I'm excited to do that a little bit later in the show. Also, some new things are happening to this channel, which, again, I will get to later. But for now, why don't we run down this week's new releases? I know E3 was only a week ago, and you would think that would slow things down, but nope. As usual, the train keeps on rolling when it comes to the digital and indie titles. First up this week, we have the third-person action RPG game and its sequel. We have Anima, Gate of Memories, The Nameless Chronicles, which is a sequel, and also the arcane edition of Anima, Gate of Memories, which is both games bundled into one. After that, we have Ink, Grab the Bottle. The plot of this game is exactly as it sounds. You have to grab the bottle. It is a puzzle game where you use an infinitely stretchy arm to grab things and drop things to get to your goal. After that, we have Destiny's Princess, a war story. Drawful 2. Next we have an old Sega Dreamcast title, Gunbird 2, which is a vertical scrolling bullet hell game. Looks like a lot of fun for you retro guys. After that we have Johnny Turbo's Arcade Wizard Fire. Next up we have what is arguably the best digital release to hit the Nintendo Switch eShop, and that is Lost in Harmony. It is a rhythm-based endless runner that explores the dream world. After that we have The Journey Down. And we had a few bigger releases this week as well. Vegas Party came out as a package title. Another title called Musinx. Musinx? It almost sounds like Mucinix, which I'm not sure they're going for. Now, just before we get into this week's big release that I'm sure everyone has been playing this weekend, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about The Lost Child. Just because it does look like a very neat game, something somewhat unique, so I felt I should take a minute. The Lost Child is a first-person, I want to say, dungeon crawler with RPG elements. You are a journalist who has to discover clues, so there's a detective element to the game as well. The story is told through, I guess, it looks like a storybook almost come to life. Not in the sense that Octopath Traveler has. These are very flat with a very focused manga art style. Until you get into the actual dungeon crawling. The dungeon crawling is all first person, and then when you do encounter an enemy, your party pops up on the bottom of the screen, and the combat is turn-based and plays like a traditional JRPG. The art style is very anime influenced. Alright, let's get on to Mario Tennis Aces. Mario Tennis Aces is the latest in the Mario Tennis franchise. I guess when Mario and Bowser aren't trying to kidnap and subsequently rescue Princess Peach, they're duking it out on the tennis court. This time around, though, Nintendo has added a great amount of depth to the Mario Tennis formula. They have added gyroscope controls, new power smashes, and also new courts to play on. The whole cast of characters are here. It is a very challenging game, one that I had trouble mastering when they had the tournament demo a few weeks ago. In Mario Tennis Aces, Adventure Mode comes back after a few entries away, and that is Story Mode, for those of you who don't know. There's also a new damage mechanic, where if you don't think you are able to actually beat your opponent in a game of pure tennis, you can try and break their racket. If you break their racket, you win by KO. Of course, they could also do the same to you, and there is also a defense mechanism involved with this, where if they can block your shot perfectly, they actually gain power as opposed to lose it. Of course, you can play someone in just a straight game of tennis as well, if you would like. There are online matches and leaderboards to go along with it. I'm sure that when the Nintendo Switch online service officially launches in September, they might add a few extra features. But for now, online play and leaderboards. Well, I think that's enough on Mario Tennis Aces. I hope you guys out there are enjoying it. I'll be joining you guys soon on the tennis courts. You guys will be absolutely destroying me, I'm sure, because I'm awful at the game. Wow, that's a lot of releases. You'd think things would slow down for Nintendo's hybrid console, but nope, they haven't. Not at all. And you know what? Pretty thankful. Happy to see a lot of games coming to the Nintendo Switch. Ports, new titles, old titles, indie titles, retro titles. It's great. Also, you'd think that after so close to E3, we might get just a little bit of a slow news week, but we don't. I have to say that June, it must be Nintendo's month because they are rolling. Why don't we get on with the headlines? Alright, this first bit of news comes out of the Square Enix camp. Apparently, the Octopath Traveler game will not have any DLC. I suppose that's a good thing. The producer believes they've made a complete product. According to an interview with Dengeki Online, producer Takahashi said that it should take about 50 to 60 hours to complete the main story, and could take up to 100 hours when you include side quests and other elements. No need for DLC, enough in the game already. Moving right along, we're going to go to the mobile arena this time as Pokemon Go is apparently getting trading in the near future. Those of you who are still playing Pokemon Go have probably noticed the ability to add friends to your game. When it was first released, the level cap in order to do so was pretty high. Last I checked, it was sitting at level 30, so those of you that are level 30 and above, you can add your friends, and soon you'll be able to trade and hopefully battle. Hopefully PvP is finally coming. If the level cap has fallen, let me know in the comments below, but last I checked, level 30. It's time for adventure with Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. The demo was released this week on the Nintendo eShop, and I know that I played the snot out of this on the Wii U, and they've added some new stuff for the Switch, so I'm actually kind of excited to play this one again. It was a fun puzzle game, not the most difficult, but a great way to kill some time on a commute. Coming hot off the heels of their announcement at E3, we have new details on the GameCube controllers for Switch. As I mentioned, they were announced at E3, and they are back for Smash Ultimate. The Nintendo Switch game controller pre-orders are now live. They retail for $29.99 US dollars each, and that is the same price for the Nintendo GameCube adapter as well. The best part about this is if you have the adapters and controllers from the Wii U days, they carry over. Also, for people like me, if you still held on to your Wavebirds, your wireless receivers and Wavebirds will carry over as well. Here's a neat little bit of news for all you Ikaruga fans out there. There is a Nintendo Switch Flip Grip. It allows you to flip the Nintendo Switch vertically and hold it with a grip on each side. It finally went up on Kickstarter. Folks at Fangamer are obviously shmup fans because they came up with the design and have started manufacturing some prototypes for their flip grip, they're calling it. And you can now go to Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the comments below for you guys if you wish to donate to that. And hopefully we get to see it. I think it'd be great for Raiden or Ikaruga or any other games. I think Gunplay 2 also plays vertically. So, gonna have to check those out. Sometime towards the end of E3, Reggie sat down with the folks at IGN and he gave us a few tidbits of news. Let's see, which one do I want to start with? He talked a little bit about the Wii U versus the Switch. The main takeaway from this is that the folks at Nintendo said that with the Wii U, the messaging wasn't quite clear. They didn't make it clear that this was a new console and not like a mid-generation upgrade, kind of like the Xbox One X or PS4 Pro. And it just never really got traction, especially coming off the heels of the Wii, which sold, 101 million units. So basically, they kind of failed from the get-go, is what they're saying. the messaging wasn't clear. They didn't really have third-party support. Obviously, rectified with the Switch because it is selling like hotcakes. Reggie was then asked about a couple of sequels that I know a lot of people have wanted, and those are Mother 3 and Animal Crossing. Basically, Reggie said, "We know, we're aware the fans want it, and we'll release something when we have something to tell you." Typical Reggie. Moving along, people who have pirated games or somehow find illegal means to get their games for the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo is bringing the ban hammer down hard on you. You will be permanently banned from any online activity on the Nintendo Switch if you are considered to be playing with an illegal cartridge or an illegal download. So, be careful what you do. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Minecraft came out this week for the Nintendo Switch, and with it came the ability for crossplay. Now, in celebration of that, Nintendo released a cheeky little ad about being able to play with their friends at Xbox. The ad featured two screens, a girl dressed in green, a boy dressed in red, red for the Switch, green obviously for the Xbox. There's also some in-game characters of the same nature. And it was all about play together, survive together, build together, and Nintendo even tweeted at Xbox saying, "Hey, at Xbox, since we can play together in Minecraft now, did you want to build something?" Seems to be quite the dig at Sony, who does not allow crossplay. Sony has decided to put up their walls, and they don't want to play with anybody, which is kind of sad. Sorry for all you PlayStation gamers out there, but the rest of us, we'll have fun together. Well, that's pretty much it for the Nintendo news. However, at the top of the show, I did mention that I had some news regarding this podcast. On a little more personal note, I guess you could say. And that is sometime over the next couple of weeks, there will be a rebrand. This podcast is not going away. However, I will be creating a new umbrella and putting this as well as some other projects under that umbrella. So stay tuned for that. And if you like, hopefully you'll stay tuned, tell your friends, and as always, you can hit that subscribe button and comment below. Let me know what you think. There will be other podcasts coming, other videos, so your feedback is very important to me. Speaking of game reviews, I finally got one for you guys. So this week I will be reviewing the Octopath Traveler Prologue demo. I know it's not a full game, but I figured this would be a nice start and a nice way to get the ball rolling. And roll we shall. Alright, so Octopath Traveler Prologue demo. Where do I start? I'm going to do my best to keep this pretty spoiler free, although the demo doesn't really go too deep into the game. You play about the first hour and a bit of your chosen hero's story. That being said, the demo itself is only 3 hours long, so you kind of have to choose wisely, as the old monk in Indiana Jones would say. So as this is a timed demo, you only had 3 hours. I chose the dancer Primrose first, and I chose her because typically in these types of games I go with like the warrior. You know, your typical bread and butter Hulk smash type of character, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try a different character, so I went with the dancer Primrose, and I'm so glad I did. Her story was so tragic, so compelling, that I didn't want to put the game down. When I got to the end of her section of the demo, I was just like, oh no, I want to play more, and I couldn't. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but it was so emotional, and it drew you in almost immediately, which for a game introducing new characters is really important. So after I finished Primrose's story, I was stuck with a dilemma. I still had about an hour and a half left before I was kicked out of the demo. So I thought, maybe I should try a new character. The thing is with this demo is that your save data, should you buy the full game when it comes out in a little bit, should you buy that game, all your save data in this demo will carry over to the package title. So at the end of Primrose's story, I was saddled with the issue of what do I do next? I want to try other characters, but if I do that, I'm going to lose my save data. Regardless, I ended up choosing another character. The second character I chose was the Scholar Cyrus. I wanted to try, again, a completely different character than I would normally choose, and I figured since I was rewarded so well with Primrose, I would go with the Scholar. Bad decision. His story was so boring, I actually fell asleep playing my Switch, with my Switch in my hands, and I just didn't care for him as a character. I didn't care for the trial they had to put me through. I didn't care for his challenges. I didn't care for the characters he met. It was so boring, and I didn't feel invested in him. That being said, Cyrus probably has what could potentially be the best job skills in the game, especially really early on. Speaking of job skills, why don't we get into a little bit of gameplay here? So, Octopath Traveler plays very much like a 16-bit era JRPG. It's turn-based. You go through the overworld or into dungeons, and there are random encounters with 1, 2, 15 enemies at any given time. You don't really know. There are treasure chests to find. For those of you that used to play Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, the formula is very much like that. As I mentioned earlier, things that change this game just a little bit are the job skills that the 8 characters have, and also something called break bonuses. For job skills, each character has a job. There's the warrior, Primrose the dancer, the scholar, a cleric, an apothecary, all that sort of thing. Each character's job gives them special skills. These special skills are essentially like your magic points. They call them special points in this game. And they appear to be pretty elemental. So the dancer can summon dark energy, Cyrus can do fire and ice, and because he's a scholar, and this is why he is kind of deadly to begin with, because he's a scholar, you're actually able to figure out your opponent's vulnerability and how much health they have left through his special points. As for the break system, each enemy has a number of vulnerabilities and weaknesses and a shield counter. So underneath the character you'll see a shield counter and then a couple boxes, and in those boxes you find out through battling over time each character's weakness or vulnerability, and you use those vulnerabilities to break down their shield counter. Every character has a different shield counter. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4. The most I've seen so far is 4. I imagine as you get on in the game, it goes higher to 8, 16, whatever. But you have to exploit their vulnerabilities to break down their shield. Once that counter reaches 0, you get what's called a break bonus, and the enemy gets dazed. Once that enemy is dazed, you actually get to jump up the turn queue, if that makes sense. Let me break that down just a little bit more. So while the battle system is turn-based in this game, like a traditional JRPG, at the top of the screen you will see a turn order, and if you're able to achieve a break bonus, you stun the character as I just mentioned. Once they're stunned, you take them out of the next turn queue. So you can imagine as your party grows, even though the number of enemies you face may grow, if you're able to continually get these break bonuses, you'll probably actually be able to start beating enemies without even taking any damage? I'm just trying to think. Because some of the smaller enemies only had one shield counter. The larger enemies so far that I've seen had four. So if you're able to just continually roll with their vulnerabilities, especially if you have Cyrus in your party and you're able to figure out their vulnerabilities, you should be able to just combo your way through each battle as time goes on. Now I'm curious now if that would make the gameplay somewhat boring. So far, early on in the game, because you can only play 3 hours of the demo, and you're pretty much locked after each character's first major boss, I wonder if, as time goes on, if that kind of system will get boring. What do you guys think? I kind of feel that as you continue to figure out these weaknesses and vulnerabilities and you're able to combo, that the battles will kind of be superfluous. I also found myself having to grind somewhat early on in the game, which doesn't really bode well for longer gameplay. I wonder if they use that as a method to extend gameplay artificially, which kind of pisses me off. I know every RPG has an element of grinding, and that's fine, but to do it so early in the game, hopefully it's one of those things where you just kind of get it out of the way. Overall, though, the gameplay was fun, it was familiar, it was intuitive, with just enough new elements to keep it interesting and fresh. The controls for this game are fairly basic. You use the left joystick to move your character in the overworld sections or when you're in the dungeons. You press the B button to run. You don't need to equip any running shoes, your characters can automatically do it off the bat. And the Y button is used for interacting with certain townsfolk. You use the A button to do actions, and the X button is your menu button. That's the only thing I found odd. I thought maybe the menu button should go under the start menu. I kept finding myself pushing start to get to the overworld map and my inventory and stuff, but nope, under X. So that would be my only gripe, is if maybe they could change that to the start button. But otherwise, the controls were pretty tight, pretty basic, and somewhat intuitive. The game itself looks amazing. Like, it is one of the prettiest retro games I think I've ever seen. It is a 2.5D 16-bit art style. It's basically flat 16-bit sprites on 3D environments, and those 3D environments are rendered beautifully. The game itself kind of has a stylistically soft focus. It's not very crisp, so for those of you that used to play Final Fantasy Chrono Trigger, Mother, Earthbound, whatever you want to call it, the old Pokemon games, those sprites and the environments were really crisp. The lines were sharp. Not in this game. Even in battle, the focus is very, very soft. And as the camera moves in and out while your character's moving around, the focus changes, and you get a nice ring around. So you're able to kind of see in the distance. It's kind of like in real life. You see in the distance, it's kind of blurry. You're like, oh, what's that? And as you get closer, it gets a little more sharp, a little more focused. Although the only time anything's ever really crisp is like a very small circle around your character as you're wandering around. And you'd think that'd be annoying, but no, it really works. And I think stylistically, amongst all these retro games coming out, it's very important to set yourself apart, and they've really done that. It it kind of feels like a pop-up book almost, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The folks at Square Enix have done an amazing job with this. Now, I talked a little bit about the story earlier in this review, so those of you who want to avoid all spoilers altogether, I suggest maybe hitting the mute button a little bit here, because I'm going to go into a little more detail. I'm going to focus mainly on Primrose, though, because Cyrus's story was just so boring. So boring. Oh my god. I kept falling asleep. It was a real slog to get through. So, I'm going to focus on Primrose. So, Primrose's story starts when she's a child, and she watches her father get murdered right before her very eyes. Her murderers don't know she's there, but she sees them and she vows vengeance. She wants revenge on her father's murderers. So she goes into the profession of dancing, travels the land of Ostera and finds that one of the murderers frequents this tavern that she eventually gets a job as a dancer at. She gets a job as a head dancer, and her master there is a guy named Helganish, and he is just an awful human being. Just an awful human being. Helganish is a creepy, creepy man. Oh, the things he calls her and the innuendo he uses is just, it is so gross. And when you finally fight him as a boss, the sprite they use in the boss fight, oh, he's so gross. It's like fighting Caligula. He's fat and ugly, and oh, it just makes the things he says even worse. Oh, cringe. So much cringe. What we eventually find out is that one of the murderers of her father, there are three, the three men have crow tattoos on their bodies. One on their right arm, one on the left arm. And one of the ones that have it on their arm, I think it's a guy on the left arm, frequents the bar that she works for. That's why she took the job. And what we find out is that he and her master Helganish are actually in cahoots. Alright, that's it for spoilers. I needed to get that out. Her story was so compelling. You guys, honestly, if I had to pick any character again in this game, I'd probably choose her again. Sadly, my save data right now is Cyrus, so when the game does come out, I'm going to have to just start over again, which is fine. I only really lost an hour of progress. Now, Square Enix does call this a prologue demo, and you can only choose one save file at a time, so I can't actually have multiple save games going on at once. I'm hoping that with the full title that's different, so that you can actually choose other people's stories. You're not just stuck with one, because I would like to try other characters out. I'd like to see what their motivations are, what makes them tick, but I don't want to lose, my main, which is probably going to be Primrose. Although, I mean, who knows, because you don't get to try too many characters, so I really hope that you can have multiple saves in the main title. Also, the wording itself, prologue demo, it makes you wonder if when you pick your character, that's it. Like, that's it. You pick Primrose, you play as Primrose, you meet the other travelers along your journey, and they just tell you about their backstory, but you don't actually get to play it. So I wonder if this was kind of your chance to experiment, or you have to start over every time, which I guess would make for longer playtime, but at some point in time you'd end up playing the same game. If any of you know the answer to that, maybe you can put it in the comments below. I wish I could ask Square Enix. Maybe I'll tweet them, see what they say. If I get a response back, I'll let you guys know. But I'll tweet them and ask them about the ability for multiple saves, and if you can play multiple story arcs at any given time, or if you're forced to just pick a main and that's it. Alright, I guess it's come to the point in time when you have to score this thing, right? So I'm going to score this on a few different elements. One will be gameplay, another will be controls, the other will be the overall presentation, and the last will be the story. So that's 4 elements. And I'm going to do this for all the reviews moving forward. For retro games, I will add one more category, and that is, does it still hold up today? As this is a new game, that one doesn't matter. So why don't we start with gameplay? As I mentioned before, it is a turn-based JRPG that's classic and still feels fresh. Gameplay, I'd give it an 8. The controls are pretty basic, tight, intuitive. I again would give that an 8. As for presentation, the presentation of this game is absolutely phenomenal. I fell in love with it. It was just stunning and really fresh in this retro era that seems to be dominating a lot of the independent space. So I'm going to give the presentation a full 10 here. I think it is absolutely stunning for a game. As for the story of this game, that's going to be a hard one to score, because for me it was so high and then so low, and you don't get to feel the bigger picture of this game yet. You get just small little snippets of individuals. However, I'm going to try and forget just how awful Cyrus's story was and focus on Primrose and hope, I can keep my fingers crossed, that the rest of the characters and the story overall is as compelling and emotional as Primrose's, and I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. So, for those of you keeping track, that is, drum roll please, that is 8.75 out of 10. Now, what do you guys think? Should I leave the decimal place, or should I just round up? We'll call it 8.75, a 9 out of 10 for now. Alright, that's the first review we've ever done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below, or you can tweet me if there are other games you want me to review, if there are things you want me to change, do differently, things you like, things you didn't like, that sort of thing. I really like your guys' feedback, so keep it coming. Keep it coming. Well, that's it for another week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. It was a big one. Had our first game review, a whole bunch of news and releases. I really hope Nintendo can keep the ball going at this pace as it does. So let's all pray for that, because we all love video games. That's why we're here. Anyways, if you like what you see, what you hear, please leave some feedback in the comments below. Also, if you don't like, leave some comments. Let me know what you don't like so I can improve upon it. Hit me up on Twitter. Best way to get a hold of me, for sure. Direct on Twitter. I'm always there. Also, your support means the world to me, so find me on Patreon, patreon.com/niftyninty. It would be a massive help if you feel like doing it. If not, that's cool too. At the very least, please hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all next week. Stay nifty.